What's up YouTube? It's me, Jamie K, and today we are going to be going over a couple of mistakes that I've made as an ER nurse. So I've been an ER nurse for almost 2 years now. It will be 2 years in March. So I'm really not a new grad anymore. It still feels like it, but I guess I've gotten some experience under my belts. But I still make mistakes. At the end of the day, even though I have a little bit of experience, I still make mistakes. So I wanted to go over some of those mistakes for the newer grads out there, and even for people in my position that are not so new but still make mistakes and still feel new. But anyway, let's get started with the first one. This one happened kind of recently, so I wanted to start off with this one first. I stuck an artery instead of a vein. It's kind of like, how can you do that when arteries have the pulse and veins don't? And then veins are kind of like palpable and bouncy and arteries aren't. So it's kind of like, how can you make that mistake? But sometimes, especially like in this area, you kind of have veins and arteries that are like super close together, or like right on top of each other, or right beside each other. And you can feel the vein, and you know you feel like you're going into a vein, and then you go into an artery, and it happens sometimes. And the way I knew that I was in the artery was because obviously the blood was pulsating, like it was like pulsating like that, and it's never done that before with the vein. And then the color of the blood also was like a bright red blood instead of like the deoxygenated darker blood that usually would come out if you were to hit a vein. Obviously I told the patient I'm gonna have to try again. So that was a mistake that I've made. Those are the two ways also that you can know that you're also in an artery and not in a vein, is the pulsating and the color of the blood. So we don't want to push any meds or give any fluids or do anything through an artery. So we would definitely want to take that out and try again for another vein. Number two, I wasted a whole unit of blood. This was when I was still very new. I've never done this before. Like, once you do something, you're never gonna do it again. And this was one of those things. So in my hospital, we get the pink top, which is the typing screen. And then we have something we call a blood band, and you put the blood band on the patient and you send off the typing screen to the lab. I don't know what I was thinking that day, but I sent the blood band off to the lab with the typing screen. And I went to the blood bank to get the unit of blood. I came back with the unit of blood, and we were about to verify and check and make sure that it was right patient, right blood, right everything. And my preceptor was like, "Jamie, where's the blood band?" And I was like, oh my God. I went to the med room and I started crying. Like, that was the first time that I've cried working in the ER, because it's like, at that moment I was like, Jamie, you're so dumb. Why would you do something like that? And I mean, looking back on it, it was a big mistake, something that I just should have double checked on. But it happens, I made a mistake, and we were not able to use that blood. So big mistake. I was still in orientation at the time, so I mean, it's okay to make mistakes during that period of time, because that's the whole purpose of orientation, is to learn and make mistakes. But that's something that I definitely should have double checked on. Anyway, number three is I ran a whole antibiotic onto the ground instead of into the patient. So make sure that you are checking your lines, making sure that they are connected to the patient and not just running all over the floor. I've only done this one time, because after this one time, I never made the mistake again. So obviously you set everything up to the pump, program the pump for the antibiotic to go through 30 minutes or whatever, and you hook it up to the patient. So the medicine goes into the patient. I don't know what I was thinking that day, or maybe I just forgot to hook it up, or maybe I was working too fast, but I came in the room and I was like, oh my God, it's like the whole floor is wet. And I was like, what happened? Like, I was like, did something waste? I'm looking around the room, and I look at the pump and it's beeping, and I go over and I see the tube on the ground, and I'm just like, oh my God, Jamie, like, you need to get yourself together. So make sure that you're following your lines and making sure they're connected to the patient. Make sure you follow your lines. Number four, this is something that I'm embarrassed by to this day, because they teach it over and over and over again in nursing school. Wear gloves when applying and removing nitroglycerin, the transdermal kind. The same thing that it does to their skin, it can do to your skin. So you need to wear gloves. And I knew this. I know this at this time. I was still brand new. This was a while ago, and the patient had the transdermal nitro paste on, and the blood pressure was getting a little better. The chest pain was kind of resolving. So I went up to the patient and I was about to take it off. Like, first thing, I'm just like, let me take this off. The blood pressure looks good. The chest pain, I need to take this off. So I go over and I'm about to remove it. And I think a nurse called me. She was like, Jamie, wait, your gloves. And I was like, oh my God, yes. Like, I literally could have been on the floor if she would have never called me. So slow down. I think I was probably moving too fast. Just slow down, put on your gloves. Why don't you have on gloves in the first place, Jamie? Like, I usually always wear gloves, but the one time I go to remove a nitro paste, I don't have on gloves. So wear gloves when applying and removing nitro. Also, another little fun fact is make sure that you ask your patient if they are on erectile dysfunction drugs before applying nitro, because they both dilate the blood vessels and you can drop the blood pressure too much, etc., etc. So that's something that I wasn't asking before, but now I have started asking the patient. So just an FYI. Number 5, make sure that you are getting vital signs right before the patient is discharged. So I think you can get like vital signs like 30 minutes prior to. One time I had a patient and I got her vital signs like maybe 30, 40 minutes right before she was about to leave. Like, I had her unhooked and everything. We were just waiting on a ride, and she got up to leave, like get in a wheelchair, and she almost passed out. And I was thinking to myself, if I would have got a blood pressure, like a brand new set of vitals right before she left, I probably would have noticed that her blood pressure was low, or something that I could have called and realized like, hey, wait, you know? So, I mean, obviously some things are gonna happen anyway without us knowing. Like, even I could have took the blood pressure, it could have been regular and she still could have passed out. But it's just a learning lesson to always get your vitals right before the patient leaves, because they can change at any time. So that's something that I try to make a habit of, like right before they leave, is getting vital signs, so that does not happen. Number 6, make sure that you are removing the top to the enema before you insert the enema in the rectum. So I've done enemas before and I forgot to take the top off, and so I put the enema top in with the top on. And I'm like, why is the bag not like, and I'm like, why is the fluid not going? What's going on? So just make sure that you remove the enema top. That's something that's like really Jamie, but no, like it happens for real. Like, we have a sign in our bathroom that says, in our ER bathroom, that says, don't forget to remove the top. Don't forget to remove the enema top. So, I mean, it's not just me, but anyway, make sure you take the top off. Ours is a blue top. Take the top off and then lubricate the end and then insert. Number 6, so inserting NG tubes. I inserted an NG tube one time and it came out of the mouth instead of going down the esophagus into the stomach. You're literally going into someone's esophagus trying to make it to their stomach blind. So, I mean, it's okay, like that happens, it's fine. Just as soon as you see it come out of the mouth, you have to take it out and, you know, restart. There was something that I make that mistake sometimes. And then also putting in a Foley catheter. It's sometimes hard, you know, women have 3 holes and you have to get that one small hole at the top. So sometimes I will go into the vagina, I guess, and it'll coil and it'll come back out the vagina. So it's like, you got to restart, re-sterilize and get everything done again and go into the urethra. Like, I've made that mistake a couple of times, and I'm looking, I'm like, I go in, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in, and I thread, and I see it come back out, and I'm like, oh my God, it's like, did you really think you're in the right spot? So those are the 2 tubing mistakes I've made with the NG tube and the Foley catheter. Those are okay, like harmless mistakes, you just have to retry again. Number 7, you want to make sure that you are getting your blood cultures before you start your antibiotics. So sometimes the doctor may order antibiotics and they don't put in an order for blood cultures. So always ask, do you want blood cultures for this patient before I start the antibiotic? More than half the time they're going to say yes and they just forgot. And sometimes they're going to say, no, I don't need it. She just has a UTI. Just give her the Rosefin and discharge her. So It all depends. It all depends on the doctor. It all depends on the patient, what the patient needs. But just always ask and always get blood cultures before you start your antibiotics. Before. I've made the mistake of doing it after or not getting them at all. I don't do it anymore, but it's because I've learned that lesson. Number 8, make sure you are getting your APTT before you start your heparin infusion. I've made the mistake of starting a heparin infusion before getting the APTT. How am I going to monitor the coagulation times and the clotting factors if I didn't get an APTT before starting the heparin? So I've made the mistake of doing that before. I've kind of assumed that they got the APTT in the initial blood work, like when they get the CBC and the CMP, and I probably just didn't get it because I assumed that it was already done. But you can't assume that things are already done. You need to go through the chart and see if they got one previously. If not, you need to put in an order for one, or ask the doctor to put in an order for one before starting the heparin. Usually the doctors are pretty good about putting in an APTT and the heparin protocol at the same time, so you shouldn't have to worry about it, but just make sure that you get that done before starting the heparin. Those are all the ones I can think about right now. I can promise you that there's way more that I have made mistakes with, but those are the ones that I can think about right now that I've definitely learned from. So hopefully you can learn from those mistakes as well. When I think of other mistakes, I'm going to make another video about my other mistakes, and hopefully those will help you guys too. So I hope this video is helpful. Definitely, I want to hear about your mistakes as nurses. Put your mistakes in the comments below so I can see yours as well. Thank you guys for watching. Toodaloo.